Well, welcome everyone. This is the concurrent session on characterization and contamination, and we'll be talking myth busting today with Amity Lumper and Lisa Skumatz. I'm Portia Sinnott of Zero Waste USA and the Northern California Recycling Association. Our goal today is to look at these very important topics through a zero waste lens. It is also our intention to hold a webinar in the near future. Over the years, I have led numerous waste characterization studies as well as capture rate studies. In my opinion and that of my colleagues, well-organized visual observational studies of weighted discards are often as meaningful as hand sorts. Yes, the conversion of percentage to weight calculations need to be fine-tuned, but that is not rocket science. So Zero Waste USA and the Zero Waste International Alliance has a declaration called the 2020 Zero Waste Declaration, which can be found on our website. It prioritizes the collection of source-separated materials versus commingled materials in a single stream. A few decades ago, here in Sonoma County, the contamination rate for non-recyclables was 3% or 4%. We were sorting into two streams, paper and containers. Now with single stream, it can be over 25%. Many of you already know about this challenge, and it's not just the modality choice, it's also our society has changed, but still, it's a big difference between 3 and 4% and 25%. Zero Waste USA and ZWIA would like all programs to consider returning to multiple streams, or at least two, paper and containers. The cities of Berkeley and Mountain View have split cart systems and better than average capture rates. So think about that. Lisa will be addressing contamination shortly, but first I wanted to make a pitch for regional standardization when markets allow. When a person lives in one city, works in another, and shops or goes to schools in a third, it is crazy making when programs are incompatible. This is even harder on businesses that operate in multiple jurisdictions. It must be kind of like keeping track of jumping beans on a daily basis. So we would like that to be a topic, not necessarily today, but sometime in the future. So on that note, I'm going to stop sharing and have Lisa bring up her slides, assuming that Amity has not joined us yet. Go for it, baby.
Thank you, Portia. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm going to be talking about myth busting. And particularly, I'm going to be talking about the contamination side of things. My co-author is Anne Vandervliet. So I'm going to talk about 3 myths related to contamination, and I'm going to look for some hands up from the audience. Myth or truth? The first myth: oops tags will solve the bulk of our contamination problem. Hands? Who thinks that's true? Well, I would argue that this is a myth. Oops tags are not going to solve the bulk of our contamination problem. They're very popular. We've seen, nationwide anti-contamination recycling kits. We've seen lots of experiments around the country. And over here in the blue column, you'll see this percent reductions, which are quite dramatic. But where the rubber meets the road is in the red column here. The post-contamination rate still remains in double digits, 30% in some cases, 24% in other cases, and that's unacceptable. That's not something that's solving our problem at all. Another problem with using oops tags or similar kinds of strategies is they're a kind of education. And if you look at education and the retention of education lessons, they last maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years. At the most, they last 3 years before you have to re-educate and regain those expenses again. And if you're not getting to, the kind of percentages we need, I'm not sure that's the best expenditure of funds. I think one of our other problems related to this and that came out of the oops tag work is we have embedded confusion because there are so many different materials that are accepted, and there are so many variations that are very difficult to distinguish in some cases. We go after things that are very uncommon in some cases that make it really confusing for the people trying to recycle. So I think we've got some issues where oops tags are really not the crux of the issue. A second myth is processors or MRFs are the bad profit-seeking actors at the heart of the contamination problem. Hands? Well, I'm going to argue that again is not, that is a myth. That is not the fault of the matter here. The fault of the matter is economics. It's Gresham's Law, Econ 101. Gresham's law says that bad bales will flood the market, will drive out good bales if that's if and only if is IFF, there's no quality control or enforcement of bale quality, and there is no reward for better quality, no financial reward for producing a cleaner bale. If you're in that situation, then the rational behavior by a MRF is to put out quality that is exactly equal to what the market will pay for. The fatal error was the first time that an end user, a male or whoever, paid for and took an out-of-spec bale. That's what started this race to the bottom. That led to the behaviors that you see in the marketplace. And we see some other irrational, so the MRFs are being rational. The other irrational behavior I also see is on the end user side, where end users have installed equipment to clean bales and pay for that on an ongoing basis, rather than taking that money, $1 less than the money they've invested in cleaning the bales, to pay more for cleaner bales and get the cleaner bales where it should happen, at the facilities designated and designed to clean bales. So the real problem here is the lack of quality control and the lack of reward for clean bales. Now, we are getting a reward for clean bales, and that we're getting rejections of not clean bales, but that's been recent. That's not quite universal yet, and it is not solving the problem quite yet, because we don't have that quality control or that cleanliness of bale reward. The bright spot is that the vital step of bale inspection and bale verification is getting cheaper and more replicable with robots, with optical sorters and other things. So there is light at the end of the tunnel here. The next myth that I wanted to ask about is there are good and effective solutions to contamination. Is that true or false? Raise your hand. I would argue this is a truth. The two things I think that are the really brightest lights on the horizon are bale certification and a carbon tax. Bale certification, what I just talked about a moment ago, rewards for cleaning bales will provide rewards to the steps up and down the actors, especially that last step of MRFs, who really kind of have the last and best control over how clean those bales end up before they hit the market. If we have clean bales, if we have bales that are consistent and known quality, that can then be called a commodity, that can then be a reliable input to production, then it is tradable on things like the regional boards of trade, the Chicago Board of Trade and others. If there are those dependable things and it's on this Board of Trade, then all kinds of market tools become possible, like futures, like options, other things that lead to less volatile market prices in the long run, and more reliable program costs, and all kinds of rewards of things that we've worried about for decades. The other really important factor is the carbon tax or cap and trade. I don't care what way you want to deal with the carbon. Carbon tax as an economist is a little bit better. Those provide real financial penalties for energy use at every step of the way, and recycled commodities will almost always win and beat virgin in the markets, because the people who are bringing virgin materials to market have to worry about all those steps like mining and processing and all that sort of thing, where the recycling side saves enormous amounts of energy. We always see the one for aluminum that saves 95% of the energy needed to produce aluminum. It's in almost all cases, it's closer to that end product, that end commodity that we're after, and has a lot less energy use to produce it. It rewards all activities and all steps up and down the line. It even captures EPR, because those people that are the producers know that they're going to have to pay more for a packaging item that takes more energy. So it's going to help reward that, produce that incentive as well. The best news is that some states, provinces, and industry even is starting to embrace carbon tax, even with the politics behind it all. I see that reflected by articles even in the Wall Street Journal saying, talking about carbon tax, and especially focusing on things like how will we measure it, who will get credit, and so on. That says to me that they're down to the measurement. They're already looking at the greater concept as not completely unacceptable. This all comes out of an EREF study that we did that looked at 40 strategies in detail in 7 groups that are near, medium, and long-term strategies, from program design, education, collection, contracting, processing, government and industry, and national and state policy. It has a lot of case studies, it has modeling in it, and lots of appendices and scoring and so on of a host of different options. In summary, we can't oops tag our way out of this. Basic market failures and fragmentation have gotten us here, and it's harmed every step of the market. The incentives that are missing need bigger long-term solutions. They are available, and I think they're looking more and more possible. The number one thing we could do is argue and lobby and whatever for carbon tax, and that would really help us out of this problem. And it resolves the issue up and down the chain. It helps the US, it helps programs, and recycling becomes the first choice. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. So do we have some questions for Lisa? Anne?
Yeah, let's see. Someone was asking about, you mentioned that incentives are missing. What are some incentive suggestions that you think will work to help reduce contamination?
Carbon cap and trade. Carbon tax is the incentive I'm talking about in that case. That is the number one driver, I think. And the incentive for the main thing is the incentive for a better price for a cleaner bale. So, and you can have not just you can have gradations on those bales as well, with different prices for them once you can have them certified and labeled. So.
All right, another question is, do we have a link to that report or study that you mentioned?
The report went in, and it's a long report, about 300 pages with different sections. And EREF is in its final stages of editing that document. So we hope to have it out soon. Watch on our website and watch on the EREF website.
And maybe one more. What can you go a little bit into maybe some of the other strategies in that, like collection? What do you think about single stream versus dual stream?
Well, that's a good question, especially since we just heard a little bit of intro on that on Portia's side. And I'm going to have to disagree with Portia because I think that what we found in our modeling work is that single stream, dual stream we found that dual stream works well, especially in smaller communities, but that single stream with the kind of cleaning that can happen at modern MRFs, they can with screens, with robots, and with the last chance line and slowing down the line can all lead to really clean materials these days. Dual stream can work especially well where you have MRFs that aren't very technical. So if you have a smaller community or a less technical MRF, that may be the right strategy. But the problem is that you lose so much in the collection costs by going dual stream that single stream kind of that part of single stream is kind of a winner. So I think that while single stream, dual stream used to be simpler, I think it's now not so simple, and that the modern MRFs are very capable of cleaning materials.
Good answer, and you certainly know more about the statistics than I do in modeling.
Thank you.
Great. We'll have a chance to ask some more questions at the end if we have time. So how about you stop sharing and then Amity can join us.
I am, and I apologize. I had some technical difficulties joining. Can you hear me okay? See me okay?
Yes.
Can you see my presentation?
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you, Portia, and all of you who have organized this conference. Very impressed, and very impressed with nearly 40 of you joining this session. So welcome, thank you, and I'm going to jump in the interest of time. So want to give our team credit here for this idea of kind of a fun bio way of presenting our bios here, and you know, typically we're reading them off, or our facilitators reading them off. So Portia indulged us here, and really what I want to highlight is my favorite donut. I've got 25 years of experience in the solid waste arena, and could talk about all the various experiences featured here on the screen. Fun memories of many a waste audit and digging around in dumpsters, and I love our very local Top Pot's seasonal Seahawks cake donut, preferably as part of a baker's dozen to share with our team here. We're located right downtown Seattle. So thanks again for having me. And you can see I'm Amity Lumper, president and owner of Cascadia Consulting Group. So let's dig in here. I'm going to tee up our fun Mythbusters game, trying to make it fun and interactive here. Some background first. For this presentation, we decided to focus on one study. So I know the initial description included many studies. We've done many studies over the course of the last couple of years, and of course, over the course of Cascadia's history as a firm, done many waste characterization studies. This one, we decided to focus on Washington, kind of a microcosm of our country in a way, rural and urban and suburban, and mix of climate, weather, landscapes, different kinds of industries represented throughout the state. And we had access to 2 publicly available data sets from the 2015-16 study and then the 2020-21 study. So 2 separate studies we're looking at for COVID impacts on the waste stream. And we're looking specifically at disposed waste, at that garbage stream. Sometimes we look at full generation for some of our other studies, but this is just the garbage. And you can see how we're defining commercial and residential sectors here. So there is a little bit of overlap with multifamily. So this is our first trend where I want to invite you to please raise your hand if you think that the data from this study supports this statement. The amount of garbage disposed by the commercial sector went down during the pandemic. Please raise your virtual hand if you think that this trend is in fact confirmed by the data from this study. I'm seeing some hands up. I can't see how many. Maybe Portia or Ann could help me out.
Right now
here.
there's 3, 4, 5.
Great, good guesses, good guesses. Well, you're busted. Not all commercial tons were reduced. Not all commercial tons are created equal. We saw, as you can see here, let me do my little animation. We saw an increase, measurable increase in commercial tons in the rural part of the state, primarily Eastern Washington, east of the mountains here, and then a reduction in commercial tons, as you might suspect, in our more urban areas, of course, the greater Seattle area dominating that in terms of population and resulting waste. Total statewide garbage, just to put this into perspective, increased by about 8% over this course of time between the studies, and the average per capita disposal went up just slightly, nearly 2%. So we had a net increase there on both a total tonnage and a per capita basis. And both regions saw a decline in the amount of organic waste disposed, with food waste going down in more urban areas. Second trend, residential cardboard disposal has increased. Can I get a show of virtual hands for those of you that think this is correct or this trend is confirmed by the data? I see lots of hands here. Of course, e-commerce is ballooning. Many of you may have piles of cardboard here, especially around the holidays. So this one isn't so easy. It's not black or white. It's confirmed, but plastics have exploded. And a lot of those plastics, as we know, come in those cardboard boxes with that packaging. And so, and again, Portia, can you help me out? How many hands did we have up there? I wanted to ask.
I saw 10.
Okay, great.
I can double check again, but I don't know really how. So
no problem. Good, good. Okay. So again, those cardboard boxes. Well, let me answer the question. So in fact, cardboard, as we see on the right here with the green arrow, overall disposed cardboard volumes have gone up, with a big jump in the residential sector and a very slight increase in, a very slight decrease in commercial tons. But as I said, talk about plastic for a second, these cardboard boxes are often filled with plastic. So we've been experiencing, as many of you may be seeing in your communities and your own households, kind of a pandemic backslide with regard to single-use plastics. Big increase there. We saw an increase in the disposal of non-recoverable plastics by the residential sector, with film and rigids when combined having an increase of nearly 80%, which is that yellow arrow on the right. And additionally, on the commercial side, rural plastics disposal increased by about 1/3, and urban plastics disposal also increased a little less by 7%. Primarily film increased there, even in spite of a 50% reduction in overall garbage tons. And our last trend, maybe some of you did a little bit of this during the pandemic, remodels, house cleanups. Did those homeowners finally get around to the remodels? Show of hands, please. Pat, see your hand up there. Great. Pamela, Jency, see hands up. So, yep. Okay, everybody I'm seeing has their hand up. Well, again, not so straightforward, sorta. So you're sorta correct here. Why sorta? Well, it depends on, again, whether we're talking about residents located in rural versus urban parts of the state. And as you can see here, rural disposal of C&D type materials went up by about 13%, with overall residential tons decreasing by nearly 3%. Urban disposal of these materials, you can see, just skyrocketed, increased substantially more, with overall residential tons going up, as you can see there, nearly 1,000%. It's amazing. And so again, this is just a recap of the trends and what we learned. And I want to thank you all for indulging me and playing Mythbusters today. Thank you so much. Here's our beautiful team at a volunteer event a few weeks ago. And I think I turn it back to Portia at this point.
Sure, we have one question for you already.
Okay.
And I already know some of the answer.
Okay.
Maggie Gaynor, maybe Maggie, you want to ask your own question? Maybe not. Okay, I'll ask it for you. Maggie wants to know, Maggie said in an earlier panel today, the presenters urged that we include more consumer goods and categories in characterization studies to learn more / encourage reuse. Please address this.
Yes, I totally agree. And we continually adapt categories. We've been getting for each study that we do, depending on the goals for those studies. And we're seeing more and more of that as a trend, and being approached by more of those packaging companies to help get the right kind of data for them to be able to address those materials and prevent disposal.
Right. And in the last two studies I did, one for the city of Palo Alto and one for the city of Mountain View, I put a lot of work into identifying reusables. And let's just say someday I hope to write an article on it. Questions, any more questions? You can raise your hand, or you can, there was a question for Lisa. Let's see if I can find it.
And I'll stop sharing my screen, excuse me.
Okay, wait, let's stick with you don't go away.
Okay, yeah.
Shannon Culpepper says, the image and graphic related to the increase in non-recyclable plastic showed plastic bags, which are recyclable in their recycling program. Is that data only referencing items that can be recycled in commingled program?
Correct. And as we all know, those programs differ community to community, and film in particular is a very challenging material to accept in a traditional curbside program, even in those single stream or commingled programs. A lot of challenges processing that material on the back end. So it depends.
Right. So do we have any more questions for Amity? No? Okay, there's one here for Lisa. Let me spotlight her and then I'll ask the question. We're learning about spotlighting here. There she is. Pat Kaufman said, I may have missed the myth, but what is the alternative to OOPS tags? For a customer that is chronically contaminating, what strategy would you suggest?
I think it's the myth was that we get OOPS tags our way out of this, or that OOPS tags were the solution. And what I tried to point out was that OOPS tags may reduce the contamination, but we're still left with double-digit contamination in the majority of the places where they put OOPS tags strategies in place. I think that part of part of the problem comes from the plethora of materials that an average consumer cannot keep straight, cannot, it's not their central life to learn about every single little recycling material. And the more we can keep the materials to the key ones and simple enough so that people can actually retain that knowledge, I think that's another part that would make it really helpful. Every little 2%er is not necessarily the way to go if it confuses the customer so that they give up. And I think that's part of what's happening. I also think that other strategies that would be helpful are to put in single-use bag bans or fees. The bags are a continual contaminant in programs over and over again. People bagging up their recyclables, people thinking they can recycle bags, and that's another thing that I think would really help based on what we're seeing. You can use oops tags as one strategy of something up and down the chain, but oops tags alone are not going to do it. And I think that if you have if you have problems with certain people who are contaminating too much, customer cart contamination penalties are fine, and remove their cart at some point. That's what you have to do.
Great. Here's a question for Amity from Ann Gibbs Vanderbeet. Do you have the commercial results broken down by business type? Do you have an idea about what businesses might have led to the increase in rural commercial waste?
Great question, Anne. And we do have some more detail on those business types. I'd have other recommendations of studies that have even more detail related to business types. And my sense is, and I'm happy to follow up and get more information from our team, but that big block of what we call rural, mostly rural Eastern Washington, which is actually where I'm from originally, even though I'm based in Seattle here now, big agriculture sector there. So I imagine that was a component, agriculture, manufacturing, industry. That's all happening there on that side of the state.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. We've got 2 more minutes. Does anybody have any questions? Well,
I believe there's
I have one final
thing
I'd like to say, and that is, I think, kind of following on to the last one about the oops tags, I think the key is here that there are steps all along the way that are important to do. We can do better at least 7 different stages of what's going on. I mentioned the 2 I think that are at the tail end that are especially important, but even earlier on, if more materials or more isn't better, better is better, and we need to really focus in on what the big bang items are and train people on that, and not expect that they are going to make recycling the focus of their lifetimes, because they're not. And we need to stop pretending like everybody else is an avid recycler. 80% of the people are not. They're willing to do good, but they're not willing to spend their life learning it.
Well, thank you. On that note, I'm suffering technical difficulties again, so I think I'm just going to ask everybody to exit, and I will attempt to fix this before my next session. Thank you,
Thanks,
Amity.
important session, and I appreciate learning what Amity had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Oh, I'm still in here.
Love you, Portia.
Thank you. I don't know who that is. Zoom is still on, but it won't let me back into the quadrant. So who is that there talking to
Maggie.
me?
It's
Hi,
Maggie. Yeah. These are some rock stars. I'm having a good time. I'm enjoying all of this. I really appreciate all the work you guys have put into this. I'm not just saying that. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm quite impressed, and I'm a member of. I'm a core member. I just can't figure out what this program's doing. Stay there, Maggie. Since you're here, I'm going to try to get you back in and see if I can. I don't know how many other people are still in.
So will you be my tech support in case I need it?
Yes, I will, but I just have to straighten out this little problem I'm having.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to reboot both computers.
my two speakers have put together, as you know, a joint presentation.
Yes.
It's really just making sure that they wrap up after about 12 minutes. The only thing that I'm concerned about is sometimes I forget
There we go.
to look at the chat. And
no, I'll be helping you with that. And I think Dennis is helping. Yes, Dennis is helping. Is Dennis, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Great. This spotlighting thing is strange, very strange. Here, I'll go to gallery.
I better
So Dennis will be joining us and he will be clarifying these problems. So everybody, welcome. Thank you for coming. We will be back again at 1:45 for the next session. I hope you enjoyed this one. Sorry about the technical difficulties.